Okay, hi everyone. We're going to do another sine law question here. Again, we're going to use the sine law to solve for an angle first here. So we're going to find angle C in triangle ABC. If angle A is 61 degrees, if little a is 7.5 and little c is 5.8. Okay, so again, I can tell that I'm going to use the sine law here because I have this angle side pair. So I know A over sine A. And then if I look at the other bit of information that I've got the top half of the C over sine C ratio, and so I'm gonna set this proportion up here. Now I'm just gonna fill in what I know. So 7.5 over the sine of 61 degrees is going to equal 5.8 over the sine of C. There's my unknown. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, and like I've done before. Again, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to help everybody here avoid mistakes that get made on the calculator when you try to do too much in one step. I'm just going to evaluate what the sine of 61 is here to 4 decimal places. So sine of 61 I know is 0.8746. Okay, once you get to this point right here, we're going to cross multiply. So 7.5 times the sine of C, okay, is going to equal 5.8 times 0.8746. And then you always cross multiply and divide. And so that quickly becomes 5.8 times 0.8746 over 7.5. So the sine of C, when we evaluate that to 4 decimal places, is 0.6764. When you get it to this point right here, again, this is similar to those questions that we've been solving earlier in this course. I have to take a look at this. I notice that sine is a positive value here, which means that this could be a first quadrant C value or it could be a second quadrant C value. And in our triangles that we're looking at right now, either one of those could work. It could be an acute angle, it could be an obtuse angle. I use the inverse sine function on my calculator to get that my reference angle is 43 degrees. And when I put that in quadrant 1, I get 43 degrees, and when I put that in quadrant 2, I get 137 degrees. Now the question is, do those work? And to figure that out here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to list the possible angles in the 2 implied triangles here. Now I already know that angle A is 61 degrees. That's a given. What I don't know is B, and I've just figured out C. So I have 2 options for C. This is 43 degrees and 137 degrees. But now here's where I really get to see whether or not this worked, or whether both of those work here. If I subtract these 2 angles from 180, I'm going to be left with 76 degrees. Well, that's a viable triangle. Each one of those angles makes perfect sense. I could have a triangle that looks like that. But this one right here, when I subtract 61 and 137 from 180, I'm left with negative 18 degrees. That doesn't make sense. Okay, you can't have that negative angle in a triangle here, so that isn't a viable option. Turns out there is only one solution to this problem. Okay, and that's this triangle right here. So this is how I want you to go through and determine or what it looks like when a question here has just one solution, as opposed to the ambiguous case that we saw in the other video.